Hey there. They say I'm live, and I believe them. So I have 30 minutes to just breathe and talk and share. And I would like to start by taking a very deep breath because it has been Tuesday since last week. So, in, out. Let's get one more of those. Ah. Reminding ourselves that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. So let's start at the beginning. I was born in Cambridge, Massachusetts in the past. And my parents were a really big influence on me as far as music. There was always music in the home. This was before television was such a big player, and certainly before internet and other screens. So we made our own fun. We made our own music. I was very active in the church. Singing was a part of everyday life. My mother tells me that I sang before I spoke. And it was just a way of being in the world. Didn't really think too much about it being that special. Both of my parents sang, not professionally, but just for the fun of it. And I learned through that experience that my gifts did not belong to me, that they were a part of the community that I lived in. Now, let me tell you a little something about my community. This was Cambridge, Massachusetts. But I like to say I had an up-south upbringing. And by that I mean a lot of our neighbors were new transplants from the South. They came from Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Louisiana, all looking for African Americans looking for a better life. And so in addition to cornbread, there were knishes. And in addition to cannoli, there was cream corn. I lived in a very, very diverse neighborhood. And I'm grateful for that. I'm also grateful that, my parents were socially aware, involved in politics. As little kids, we would canvass with our parents for the candidates that could make a difference. Went to the March on Washington. So these values were instilled very, very, very young. And I think the things that impact you as a very young person stay with you. So let's just talk about jazz, how that came into the picture. My mother loved gospel. So there was a lot of singing going on in the house, a lot of praising the Lord. My father loved big band music, Count Basie, Duke Ellington. And so my entree into this world that we call jazz was really through my father. I can remember standing on top of his feet and dancing to 1 o'clock jump in the living room. So for me, it's not a kind of very cerebral music. It reminds me of the love. It reminds me of dance. It takes me to a joyful place. So early on in my circuitous road, because it was not a straight road, I studied healthcare administration in college. I was a good student. And it never really occurred to me that, this thing called jazz could be a career. In fact, the idea that the arts could be something where you could flourish and make a living, not so much. It was later in my life, after I was married and had a family and a fabulous husband, that the idea that I could really do this thing that I loved, this thing that was burning inside of me. And I'll give you an example of how clueless I was. Here I am, a hospital administrator, working in a hospital. Why is it that I'm always in the patient's room singing? Something should have occurred to a sister. It was my husband's steadfast love and support that really made it possible and opened the way for me as a singer. Now, why do I say that? Certainly, I had the talent. I had some talent, a lot I needed to learn. I had desire, but I also was living in Durham, North Carolina with 3 small children. And in my mind, I had a scenario that went something like this. You have to live in LA, or you have to live in New York, and you have to go to Berkeley, and you have to, you have to have a deal. All of these things were reasons in my own mind why I couldn't pursue this dream. But I remember moaning and groaning, complaining to my grandmother, who was 90 something years old at that time. I really want to do this, but I can't do it because I'm living in nowhere, USA. And I got 3 kids and I really want to sing jazz, but I can't. And I don't know. And I can't. She stopped me mid-sentence. She said, baby, bloom where you're planted. If God wants you to sing this jazz music, He can find you wherever you are. There's nothing too hard for God. So Irene Smith, born in Bonita, Louisiana in 1899, took away all of my excuses, as did my dearly beloved husband, who said, I will help you. I will help you. If you want to do this, I will help you. You cannot use your situation or us as an excuse for your unresolved dreams. And he did. He was as good as his word. Now, a girl with a dream, needing a mentor, needing to know so much. That's a recipe for growth right there. This is what I found. After I stopped making excuses, after I stopped looking at others and comparing myself to them, opportunities, I don't want to say magically, but opportunities reveal themselves. Perhaps they were there all along and I didn't see them. There was a jazz workshop in my very own town of Durham, North Carolina, which I joined and learned some of the basics from a local musician named Yusef Salim and Bus Brown, who was Baby Lawrence's brother. How about that? Right here in nowhere, USA. And so I worked under the radar, learning the ropes, learning tune after tune, so much. I was hungry. I was on fire. And yes, I had 3 small children, but guess what? We all have to learn creative ways on stage and off stage to do what it is that we were put on this earth to do. And I believe I was put on this earth to tell stories through song and to create beauty and meaningful sounds in this world. And so as I've gone on this road brought me to Dr. Billy Taylor, who was an incredible, incredible mentor. This road brought me to Brother Yusef Lateef at UMass, at the Jazz in July program, who opened up my mind to different ways of conceiving music. A wonderful, wonderful mentor. On and on and on, everything I needed, and some things I didn't know I needed, right there at the right time. They say when the student is ready, the teacher will come or the teacher will appear, and that has been my story. Definitely, definitely my story. So here we are, fast forward 2020, COVID-19, gigs seem like the good old days when we could get on a plane or a train and go and do what it is that we do. It seems like a long, long time ago. And I'm really, really struck by this season of our lives being a cutting season. Many of those that we have loved in this music have passed on. Many opportunities that we came to rely on have also passed on. Many things that we thought we could hope that we could really count on as our careers were growing and developing have shifted and changed. What to do, what to do, what to do. I challenge all of us to look at this rather than a season of decrease as a season of opportunity, as a season of quiet where we go within and try to see what else is possible. Because there's always another way. There are always other ways of sort of viewing what we do. How can we attract those things that we desire? I know for me, I'm an extrovert. I love me some people. But I've had to sit with being quiet. I've had to sit with not being engaged in the same way. I miss my audiences. I miss my musical tribe and family. But it's also been a season of great blessing for me to just breathe, to consider all of my efforts and see which ones bring me great joy. Now, I don't want to belittle or make it, I don't know, seem like this isn't a very hard time for a lot of people. But I still want to invite curiosity into the conversation. Curiosity about really, truly, what else is possible. What can we do? What can we not do? What part of this season that has shifted and changed were things that really weren't working that well to begin with? How can we create connection without actually physically being in the same space? How can we look at inner space and dig in that well? All of these thorny questions. I mean, I really think COVID-19 has given us an opportunity to look at some of those things. And some of us are like, I want it to be like it was. I want it to be like like it was before all this. I truly believe that this is a transformative time and that things will never be like they were. And that things were never super, super cool for everybody before. So in welcoming in the change, in learning how to surf, in being open and willing to try a new thing, to think about our art in new ways, to stretch out on faith in many ways. And I have to lean on grandma and grandpa and great 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 grandpa and grandma who also had to walk by faith, who dreamed of a time, who dreamed of a freedom, who dreamed of an opportunity that was denied them. But it didn't stop them from dreaming. And in many ways, we are that dream realized. Right here, right now, with all the challenges, with all the problems, when we look in the mirror, we are seeing the dream that our great, 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 great grandma and grandpa could only dimly imagine. And so I hope that that is somewhat of a, of a comfort to realize that we are here for a purpose, here for a reason. None of this is random. None of this is because of something that just happened. We were destined to be here making music, changing people's lives by the things that we do, not being defeated and ground up and depressed and pushed to the margins, but thriving. Nobody needs a song more than they need one right now, right at this very minute. So what do we have that we can offer up to this moment? What do we have that we can freely give to this moment? That's a question that I ask myself on the daily. I have a little chalkboard that I write down what I'm grateful for every day. And it's very helpful to remind me that there is, even with the challenges, even with the upset, that there is so much to be grateful for. Now, I don't have any gigs. Well, let me just say this. I have very few gigs until the fall of 2021. Things seem like they're starting to ease up a little bit in 2021, which seems like a long time away. And what I am doing in this quiet time is taking time for self-care, taking time to care for those around me who need me, and creating space for new projects, things that I never would have had time, things that have been calling my attention, but that I just haven't gotten to. And now I have the time. In 2019, my beloved husband of 40 years passed away from ALS. It was a 3-year struggle. And it was a 3-year path of joy, growth, struggle, and heartache. However, we have a saying, every goodbye ain't gone. Every goodbye ain't gone. Every goodbye ain't gone. Every shut-eye ain't sleep. Every goodbye ain't gone. He is gone in one sense, but in many, many other ways, he is right by my side. So I am in the throes of grief at this very moment. Grief is sitting right to my left, and she is informing my life at this point. And what do I mean by informing my life? I look at grief as something that you wear, like a cloak, like a dress. And grief is asking always, dance with me, dance with me. And there are many kinds of grief. There's the grief of losing a loved one. There's also the grief of the change in the atmosphere, the change in the orbit, the fact that we don't have what we used to have and that things are just different. That's also a grief. And it's something I think we suffer with in silence. How many times have we known someone who is dealing with a big change and we just don't know what to say? We just don't know. We don't know so sometimes we're silent and we say nothing. Other times we mumble something like, oh, you have my deepest condolences. But holding space for each other in this grief time is super, super important. And so I'm working on a project called Great Grief. It's a podcast where based on story and based on song. I'm going to sing my way through. I think sometimes when we say, I don't know what to say, it's because a song needs to be sung or some music needs to be played. So my podcast is 50% music and 50% story. First voice story. Story about the experience of loss, living in the light of loss. And no, it's not all doom and gloom and sad. I have been growing through my grief. Has it been easy? No. It's not been easy. But I can say I'm stretching out in ways I never, ever thought that I could. Stretching, growing wide and deep through this tumultuous change. Now, my husband and I were married for 40 years. That's a long time. That's my entire adult life. We met in our 20s. We were married shortly after. 3 kids, 7 grandchildren. And now I'm here on this planet walking the rest of this path, however long I have, without this very, very important seminal person in my life. And so great grief is exploring its curiosity about this thing we call grief. Curiosity about how it can be reframed. Curiosity about the fact that I really think grieving is a sacred state. It's certainly an altered state. And so for me, rather than running from it, I am endeavoring to run toward it. Grief is asking me, dance with me, dance with me. Yeah, but you got boots on and I'm barefoot and I don't know the steps and I'm afraid it will hurt. Between a rock and the hardest place you can imagine. Yet we're not alone. I know I'm not the only woman who's been through this. I'm not the only human being who has been through this. And so the tools, I want to talk about tools, what works. For me, it's my music, it's song, it's creating community, it's creating safe space to talk about those things that people don't want to talk about. Maybe I shouldn't mention it, might make her sad. I find that people want to, they desire conversation, not to be told how to feel, not to have answers, but just to have safe space created where they can express whatever it is. And I think language can take us only so far. Sometimes when we say, I don't know what to say, it's because we need a sonic vibration. We need a song. We need a poem, something not in the realm of regular words to soothe the soul. So great grief is also going to be about tools, creating an altar in your home. So you can't go to the funeral. And you know how we like funerals. We like viewings. We like and let's be honest, funerals are a very big social event for many of us, an opportunity to mourn proper. But what can we do in this COVID world to be safe and also give great respect? And if we believe that every goodbye ain't gone, then that means that our beloved loved ones are a breath away. And when we see that butterfly or the leaves, where I live now, the leaves are just falling, and they're not just falling straight down. For me, they're dancing, twirling and swirling, and seems like they're putting on a show just for me. I know that is my beloved. I know it. I know it in my bones. So these are the kinds of stories of hope, not just survival, but thrival. Thrival with the tools that bring peace, that can bring some sense of acceptance, that can bring some sense of joy as we walk this path that nobody gets out of. Okay, nobody gets out of it. Everyone must deal with this at some point in their lives. And so I am delighted that the tools that I've worked on for over 30 years, the tools that I've developed as a singer, I can now pour into both myself, my own heart, but pour into great grief with joy and passion. I'm reaching out for guests, people who've experienced grief, who don't mind sharing that story in a safe community, not for answers, not for, I know how this, not a clinical approach, but just in a loving embrace. So that's what a sister's up to. And hopefully my podcast will find its way to your ears and to your hearts. And yes, I will be on the road at some point, but I'm no ways tired. I'm not afraid. I'm very certain that our lives will intersect and we will find ourselves in this beautiful circle of the music once again. And I am looking forward to that.